Today we're going to talk about deviance, particularly deviance, crime, and social control, which hopefully you've read about already. And I want to provide you with a definition first. So deviance is a norm violation or a stigma construct, meaning that what we consider to be valuable or important has somehow been violated. It doesn't necessarily have to be pathological. In psychology, deviance is definitely constructed as a form of pathology, but in sociology, it's not necessarily going to be pathological or harmful. So let me tell you why in a few different ways of the way sociologists look at deviance and the role of deviance in society. First of all, deviance is known as a formal property of a social institution and social system, meaning that there's something about the structure, about the way things ought to be done, that if somebody in some way goes against that, that is how deviance works. So formal property meaning that there's a known structure that's provided in every society about behavior, appropriate behavior. Anything that would go against that, any form of inappropriate behavior, could be construed as deviance. Secondly, deviance is a stigma construct. So whatever's valued or important in society, certain behaviors will diminish the importance of that value. So, for example, if the value of loyalty is something that's very important to society, deviance would be something that would somehow diminish that value, maybe making relationships more shallow and less important would be a way of going against that particular norm. So deviance is a shifting reality. It's often ambiguous and can be volatile. There's nothing that can be more interesting than somebody who breaks a norm. So some of you might do this in a blog that's coming up, but say for example you go down the wrong way in the escalator, chaos can break out, or if you cut in line, people will get very angry because there's a set rule as to how you're supposed to act. So anytime you're going against that, it's very obvious then what the norm is, what is accepted behavior. You pick it up right away that you have just done something that people are very upset about. But the reason why it's a shifting construct is because in some situations, some behavior would be perfectly acceptable, whereas in another situation, if you did or said the same thing, people would be very angry at you. So say for example, around your friends or around a certain group of friends, it's okay to swear. You can drop the F-bomb and nobody's going to care, But say you're in church, and the minister is giving his or her sermon, and all of a sudden you just, say the F word. Well, obviously, that is going to be really unacceptable behavior. So deviance is not always a strict thing where in every situation, that particular behavior is going to be unacceptable. Well, it depends, right? It depends on who you're with and the situation that you're in. So in the way that you do it too. So deviance is definitely something that's shifting and sometimes ambiguous. Okay, so deviance is particularly salient in a rapidly changing society. So in any sort of cultural situation where things are breaking down or changing in some way, you'll often see this by forms of deviance. Question really of what produces what. So sometimes deviance can kind of push the button, push the envelope on what's acceptable in society, and sometimes society is already kind of going through that. Maybe there's an economic shift or a political shift, and deviance is a way of coping with that. So we've seen sort of cultural shifts happen in society, such as views on homosexuality, which used to be a very strict, deviant lifestyle, but through media and through political campaigns, we've seen a real shift in the way that we view homosexuality and sexuality in general. So here we can see, in society today, things are changing culturally. You'll listen to your grandparents or even your parents say that things were so much different 20, 40 years ago than they are today. And I think they're noting that, in the sense that culturally things have changed quite a bit. So deviance is usually pretty salient, pretty important, given a rapidly changing society. Deviance is radical, challenging, and threatening, mostly because it offers a different vision of the social world, one that might actually come to be. So people who want to preserve the status quo, want to keep things the same, are really going to see deviance, any form of deviance, as a threat to their well-being. Which is why it's so interesting to study deviance, because often it shows who's sort of benefiting from the status quo and who is being somewhat diminished or put down by society. So deviance can kind of highlight that that inner circle, the outer circle, right? Insiders and outsiders. So in a sense, every society needs deviance because it shows what we consider to be normative and the constraints that normative behavior can bring, as well as provide opportunities for change. Things we can have a more progressive society. We can be a more open society. And how do we do that? So deviance often highlights that. So this is why we don't see deviance as a form of pathology, but we do recognize that it has a certain function in society rather. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to pick up an Us magazine or a Star magazine, a gossip magazine basically, and I want you to make a list for what deviant behaviors are allowed for famous people that would be considered deviant done by the average citizen. So you also want to look at examples of conventional behavior. So make a list of those behaviors that you see as deviant and conventional. You can just look at the pictures if you want, read the headlines, that should be enough. And if you want sort of a measure of what is normative or acceptable behavior, you might want to use your grandparents' viewpoint, a more conservative viewpoint. And then answer the questions that I provide for you. Why you think it's more prevalent, deviance more prevalent in gossip magazines, and then how does deviance relate to pop culture.